Welcome to this episode of Our College, Your Voices. I'm your host, Kara Monroe. Even for those of us who've made careers out of higher education, curriculum management is not always the topic of conversation that gets us all excited. And I certainly do not recommend that you bring this up at your next cookout or party. However, curriculum development specialists do find the content and delivery of the curriculum to be a lot more interesting and engaging than the technical process of maintaining a strong curriculum management system. But the reality is that a clear and transparent system for managing and updating curriculum is crucial for today's colleges, especially one as large and as complex as Ivy Tech. So today I am really excited to tell you a little bit about an initiative launched a couple of months ago at Ivy Tech to transform the system we use to maintain and modify the curriculums of study and the courses that make up those programs. 4 panelists are joining me today to discuss our new curriculum management tool and the progress made so far. We'll also tell you about what you can expect with this new process if you're a faculty or staff member at Ivy Tech. I'm excited to have these 4 guests with me to talk about this. Let's meet them. First up is Sarah Ferguson. Welcome back to the podcast, Sarah. Would you mind sharing with us a little bit about your role at Ivy Tech and your role with this project?
I am the Director of Academic Projects and have the opportunity to oversee the implementation of our new curriculum management software. For our regular listeners, they may recognize my name as I am also the producer for the majority of the podcast episodes. So it's really nice to be on this side of the table today.
It is very fair to say no podcast episode would get released if Sarah were not involved. So Sarah, it's great to have you on the show, but you're always here in spirit for everything. Our next guest is Drew Lurker. And Drew, I think this is your first time on the show. So how are you today?
This is my first time. I'm doing well. Yeah.
Tell us what you do for the college.
I manage the degree auditing system for the college, as well as the curriculum of record and several other systems for the college, the degree planning tool, which all interact with the catalog and the curriculum of record. So I'm excited about the project.
And Vearl Turnpaugh. Vearl, there are not many people that can say that they've been at Ivy Tech longer than I have, but you are one of those. And of all of our academic affairs staff, you've got the most years of experience with working with our curriculum committees. Would you introduce yourself and tell us why this project is important to the work that you do with our curriculum committees and just to our curriculum committees in general?
Sure, Kara. Thank you. I've been with the college for 31 years, and I actively work with the curriculum committees as my job as assistant vice president for curriculum. Inside curriculum committees, we actually prepare the coursework and then prepare the curriculum that we utilize to make operational out at our site location. So it's very, very important that we have those issues correct as we move forward to student facing.
Thank you, Vearl. Welcome to the show. And last but not least is Russ Baker. Russ, you are our most frequent guest to the podcast. This is what happens when you work too closely to me. I think you get invited all the time. Would you give folks a brief introduction, though, and talk about your role with this project?
Sure, Kara, and it's good to be back. It's actually been maybe 3 months since I've been on one, so that's not too bad. I'm the VP for Academic Affairs, and I think my official title for this project is Project Owner. I can tell you that Sarah is doing most of the heavy lifting with all the communication back and forth, but I'm kind of just overseeing making sure we bring this to the finish line.
Well, I'm excited to talk about this. I really am excited to talk about this. I am one of those people who does get excited about systems and processes like this. So Sarah and Russ, we'll sort of toss the first question to you and anybody else can jump in on it. Why did we need to make a change in tools, and when did the project first get started, and sort of what's the status and the future look like? So give us the current state and future state.
So I'll jump in and just say quickly that I'm going to jump to the last part of your question, Kara, and say the timeline for completion right now is planned to be for February of 2022. So that's kind of the end goal. But in terms of the change that was needed and how this project got started, I think I'm going to defer to Sarah for that part because she was more closely involved in that. It kind of gets into some details on looking at our internal staffing in systems office and some things like that. But Sarah, why don't you kind of jump in on that part?
Yeah, certainly. I know that it had been talked about throughout Drew's area before the systems office administrative assistant restructure, but that was when it really came to light, I think, So that restructure happened in 2019. And during the restructure, a time study was completed regarding our course outlines of record, so the CORs. And this demonstrated a compelling need for a curriculum software management system. During the time of the study, there were 4 administrative assistants completing this work. And the study showed an equivalent of 1 full-time employee spending 99% of their time maintaining all of those CORs. So following that study, it was decided to pursue the selection of a curriculum management system from an outside source. We reviewed, I want to say, roughly 5 vendors. And we went ahead and went with DigArc as our vendor of choice based on their ability to assist our specific needs. We began the work with them in June of 2021. And we plan to have a partial implementation completed by September of 2021. And then, as Russ said, we're aiming to have all of it completed by February of 2022.
And I think it's good to level set for folks. And Drew and Vearl, you're probably closest to this. Can you help curriculum committee members especially understand what this system will replace?
Yeah, I think they do, or they're starting to understand that. We have a manual system right now that is not interconnected. And so our courses and our curriculum are distinct of each other. And the new system, the courses, will build those courses first and make those the building blocks for our curriculum. And then on the backside, once we have that curriculum, it's going to interface with some of our other systems to make that seamless across the system, which will reduce our errors and make it more transparent.
So, Vearl, I might be asking you the same question in just a different way, but I think it's complicated. If you're not in it every single day, like all of us are, I think it's okay to restate. So you work with our agriculture committee, for instance. If that committee agrees to changing one of the learning objectives in a course, what happens with that recommendation once they approve it before it actually becomes finalized in our course outline of record? And how's that going to change, or what will that look like in the new process as you understand it so far?
It has changed, and it's changed over the years for us too. Our system has progressed. The system that we currently have right now, if there is a change in curriculum or coursework, I should say, that goes through the curriculum committee. It's voted on. That change is either adopted or rejected at the committee level, but then we have a group of individuals that have oversight as a check and balance to look at those course changes and then really do an analysis as to whether that's a major change or a minor change, and then allow that change to be approved also or rejected back to committee. So the curriculum committee is a kind of a manual process. Although we do that inside of Google Docs, then the changes are adopted inside of our Google Docs, which are COR, our curriculum outlines. And then those changes have to be implemented into other software systems. And sometimes there's a disconnect there that can happen with that. But that process will change considerably as we move to the new software system. When we go into committee, there will probably be a system. That system will allow us to actually do a kind of a linear pathway where we'll take votes on those things, and those things will go into a queue. Those changes will go into a queue, and then allow those things to be made a little bit quicker, maybe, and then allow the oversight to happen in a more mobile fashion, I would say. I'll throw it over to Drew and see what he's got to say too.
Yeah, so I think for our end users, there's going to be 2 primary systems or things that they interact with that they'll see change. The first that I think we've all been pretty familiar with is the curriculum of record that's been in the Google Drive for several years now. That will get moved into more of an official catalog for the college. Then the course outline record, which we also just this past year moved to a Google Drive system away from COR Web, that will get replaced as well. And it'll, like Vearl was talking about, be in a more interconnected type of system where you will be able to go to one place, one landing page, and be able to access the curriculum of record, the degree requirements, And you'll also be able to see interconnectedly the course outlines of record so that you can, one of the things I always hear people want is to be able to click on the course and see the course description. And that will be a nice new feature that we'll have coming and be able to look forward to.
I would add on to Kara that Drew's kind of being a little bit modest here in terms of the curriculum management portion of this too. We've had to create our own system internally that does that coming out of curriculum meetings so that we can understand and know where our curriculum process is at and then make sure it gets to you and that you're able to check those things off as we look at curriculum, make sure there's a good rationale behind that. This system is going to, take care of many of those issues too, so that we won't have to have our own system of management. That will be our system of management.
Yeah, I'm most looking forward to just making sure we don't lose anything that a curriculum committee wants to do, because I know that's something we all of us lose some sleep over is, did we get all of the changes that the curriculum committee wanted? So it'll be nice to be able to see those right in the system and know where they are at all times. Drew, you've already talked a little bit about some of the interconnectedness that we'll see with the new system. And I know you do so much work with inputting course outlines of record and curriculum of record and our degree requirements. What are some of the other ways that you're excited about that this system will improve our levels of efficiency?
Yeah. So, and I think we talked a little bit about it in that we'll be able to see and ensure that things that faculty vote on in those curriculum committees make it through the process and give us transparency into that process and be able to allow curriculum committees to see where is something at in the approval. So with efficiency of the system, I think one of the things that we're going to gain is that it's going to help us with our quality and assurance. Many things go through the system, many moving parts with course outlines, which are kind of separate from degree requirements. And Vearl kind of mentioned they're building blocks to be able to meet learning objectives and competencies that are expected to be within our degrees that external agencies care very much about. So I think with this change, it really is a robust change management system. It'll help us identify where we change a learning objective that might affect a competency that in a degree that might not be in the degree that you're managing, but it might, or in the courses that you're managing are used by another degree and it might affect them. So that's one of the really, as far as efficiency, that's something that we haven't been able to provide to our catalog is to be able to provide that quality and assurance check that we are meeting all the objectives that we're meeting and we're providing that quality education to our students.
And Kara, I'll just jump in also quickly to what Drew has said. He used a word a little bit ago that I love about this system, and that is transparency. And I think that one of the huge advantages of this system from what we've had up till now is, and Vearl alluded to this as well, our curriculum committees approve things, and then they really don't have any way currently of knowing what happens after that. They have to rely on their systems office liaison to take things through the rest of the process. And the new system isn't going to allow the curriculum committees to someone from a curriculum committee won't be able to go into the system and just pose a change. I mean, we're still going to keep our curriculum committee decision-making process, but they will be able to see where it is in the process of approval if they choose to, for example. And that's a level of transparency that I think will be really good for our faculty. We have a faculty member on our lead team, Anthony Sams from the Sellersburg campus. And I think faculty are going to really appreciate the fact that they can now see what happened to that change that we did approve back in October. And that's something we've never been able to do before. So I think that's going to be a really big deal.
Yeah. And I'll kind of tie this into the faculty governance of our curriculum and ownership of our curriculum. The fact that they can see into the system and see where something is at is going to help increase the faculty's ownership of what our curriculum is, and to be able to see this is where it's at in the process. And this is why I got approved or why I got denied. And to be able to create that cycle and that feedback loop that we desperately need in our process.
So now for the hard part, because to implement a system like this, we do have to take a little pause on making changes to our curriculum. So changes approved by curriculum committees in fall of 2020 have already been made in time for the fall 2021 semester. But we know that there's going to be a curriculum freeze, or if you're hearing this for the first time, there's going to be a curriculum freeze for 2021, 2022, meaning that this fall curriculum committees are asked to really limit making changes to courses and requirements. Can you talk about why the freeze is necessary and how this is going to impact our curriculum for the fall of 2022?
I'll jump in on why it's necessary because it's really a data kind of question. So anytime you convert from one system to another, data consistency is always an issue. Having data consistency on a moving target is even a bigger issue. So one of the things that we realized when implementing this, because of our timeline, it really needed to have a snapshot in order to convert all the things that we are familiar with within our own homegrown systems into a structured environment that DigArc is. It's a formal structured database that has specific requirements and certain relationships. And being able to make those and have some sort of assurance that what we started with is what we end with is a really important part to having confidence in the system. So that's already, we've started a change log of things that we've had to change since we took the snapshot of our catalog to provide to DigArc. So we are making a way to capture the changes to make sure that they get applied into the new system. But that's really why we need it, is because we're doing a very large data conversion of thousands of documents. That's going to impact our web pages. It's going to impact our course outlines. We're going to impact our degree requirements. And having that consistency is going to be really important so we can have confidence moving forward.
In any of these, my background is in industrial automation, but this is an educational automation project. But it still holds true that the two things that we worry about a lot are accuracy and repeatability. And so this system will affect both of those factors. We'll be repeatable and it'll be transparent the way that we do things, both to faculty and to students and within our administrative system. But the freeze is necessary to really zoom in on the accuracy piece this year and make sure that what we have is what we say it is and it's right for students this way. So that's going to be the task of inside curriculum committees this year, is to really pour over the things that we did last year and make sure that those were the right things in terms of the system management side and the accuracy of it. And that's what we're going to work on.
So everybody always wants to know, okay, but there's a freeze, but my change is really important. So are there any exceptions? And Drew's kind of already said there might be. Where are the exceptions that we know about today?
Well, one of those will be if there's something that is tied directly to program accreditation that just has to be done. We are clearly not going to sacrifice a program's accreditation to this freeze. So that's one of them. We're also making it clear that new programs, we are not going to sit on our hands for a year and not respond to industry needs or to other statewide initiatives that might result in a new certificate or a new program. So we're saying this is really a freeze on existing curriculum, not new curriculum. So those would be two that jump out at me, Kara.
I would add also to Russ's point, this kind of goes to accreditation in a way, but we have transfers of junior programs. Some of those programs changed in the past year. Those edits will have to be made inside the curriculum to make sure that we still have the competency base, like what Drew was talking about, in terms of our student outcomes on the end and their competencies. If we find errors that are just obvious to us, like, although we would hate to say this, a hidden prerequisite or something of that nature, I believe that those would be able to be corrected also.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think what we won't be doing this year is tweaking the wording of a learning objective. that's sort of a straw man example, perhaps, but it's the kind of thing our curriculum committees rightfully do. But this year is just not the year for those kind of minor edits and, modifying slightly a course description. We really want to only have exceptions to the things that are truly very compelling needs.
So when the new system is fully implemented, and its official name is DigArc, that's the company name. We haven't given it an Ivy name yet. Is there any plan to? Drew's shaking his head no. So, okay, it's just going to be DigArc.
That's up to you, isn't it?
I know, it probably is. We'll continue to discuss. And maybe if folks have a strong interest in what it should be named, they should reach out.
It's Ivy Log, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh gosh, no.
It's just the college's catalog.
The college's catalog. That's very good.
And that is what the HLC, like when we went through accreditation, I mean, that's one of the things that we had to provide the college's catalog. And having a decentralized one currently was a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, that actually, this is kind of a different line of thinking, and it's probably coming up in one of your questions yet to come, Kira. But that's one of the things that I think will be a very noticeable change that I see as we haven't talked about so far too much. But a huge advantage of having this new system will be that there will be a catalog. It's not going to be printed. You won't see it on folks' desk. But it'll be a catalog much like what we used to have printed. And as Drew just said, we haven't had that kind of catalog in one central PDF kind of location for several years. So that'll be a huge, I think, a very significant advantage that not only faculty and staff, but students as well, I think will appreciate.
I would agree with that, Russ. It's the consumer of the information that we have. So there are accreditation bodies that want that information from us, and in a decentralized format like what we have now, it's kind of tough to get to some things. We often have accreditation bodies that say, we don't understand where you're sending us, and how do you update this, and they want to know process pieces too. I would also say that goes for student base too. I think this system is going to give us a lot of flexibility in terms of how students consume information about their coursework and their curriculum that they're currently enrolled in too. I think it's going to give us, the software has the ability to do plans of study for students and some of these kind of things that it's not necessarily new to us, but it might, that information can be consumed in a different way from a student base.
So, Vearl, you've started to go into my last two questions, and I'll just give them both to you at the same time, and would love for all of you to jump in on some more thoughts here. What is this going to change for the end user, whether it's students, faculty, or staff, once the system's implemented? We hope February 2022. What are the big noticeable changes they're going to see?
I can jump in with the student side. I think for the student side, which is what I'm most excited about, and we've touched on it a little bit, is that there will be one place on our website where you will go and you will have access to our entire course catalog. What is also nice about it is we'll have the active catalog, and then we'll have deactivated catalogs there as well. So if anyone needs to go back, students or faculty need to go back and look at another academic year, they can see that course catalog for that specific year as well. So that's where my excitement mostly comes from, is for the students to have that one central location where they can go and see everything that they need to see. I feel a little old school because I remember having a printed book when I was in college, and I would go, and I was that person who would go and look in that book, and I would, circle or dog ear pages, things like that. So when I came to Ivy Tech and that wasn't something that was available, I really was like, I feel like this would be so important for students. So I am really excited about that aspect of it.
Yeah, I'll chime in with one about degree maintenance that I think I'm excited for people to see, is that I think we'll be able to move more efficiently through the process of developing new curricula. I think as a community college, one of our charges is to be responsive to the workforce. And once we have this implemented, while we might have to have a small freeze that will work itself out, but once we have this in place, we'll be able to be much more efficient in our change management, which will allow us the bandwidth to be able to respond to demand more quickly and to be able to have a more transparent process.
I think it will change somewhat change the culture of the way that we consume information here at Ivy Tech too. Whether you're a faculty member going into a curriculum committee meeting, I think it's going to move the information piece to more of I have to do my homework up front so that I'm ready for a curriculum meeting to do what Drew's saying, so that we can act on those things and then move the approval process forward more significantly. But from a student facing side, I think it's going to allow students to do that too. They're going to be able to consume information in a way that is acceptable for them, and then move into potentially with an advisor who has that same kind of information there also. And the advisor can work with the student and refer to a common source of truth, which is our curriculum and our coursework and our catalog, so that we can put our best foot forward for our student base.
I haven't, Vearl and Sarah, your answers made me think about this, because I haven't asked you all this as you've been implementing the software. I know we'll be able to see past catalog years. Can we release the future catalog sort of as everything gets approved, or does the next year's catalog have to get released all on one date?
I'm going to defer to Drew on that. I think maybe he's been a little bit further into the system. He might know.
Yeah, I would say the general concept is that there is a publishing date of the catalog. Although I think if we pushed and pulled at the system a little bit, we might be able to achieve something that's more innovative like that, because that's definitely not a traditional catalog in higher education. It's very much released on a date, and it's, set in stone. But not saying that that's not possible in it. And I do think that it'll help us identify where we need to make corrections faster too. And I think that's important for our students, because the catalog really is a contract between the college and the student about what they need to do to complete their requirements to be conferred their degree. Mm-hmm. And that's a really important piece of the catalog. And if we have left a course out somewhere, so we'll be able to identify that much sooner in the process. So I always go back to the quality and assurance side of things and making sure we have it right the first time.
And I'll just go back to what Sarah said. From my perspective, currently, if there's a prospective student out there, I believe what I'm about to say is correct. And they want to look at what our requirements are for several different programs of study. They don't know for sure what they want to major in, or what's required for them to take if they do major in automotive management or welding, or whatever the choices are that they're looking at. Right now, they have to look on our website in different places to find that information. It's not an efficient system, because they have to go to the welding program and look at those requirements, and then they go over to auto management and look at those. This will give them a single source. And I think we're going to find students using the catalog almost immediately, much more than they'll be using other places that we might currently have. I think it's going to increase our transparency to students as well as faculty. So that's what I'm most excited about.
All right. Well, I have really enjoyed this conversation a lot, because I love continuing to learn about what this new tool set is going to do for us at Ivy Tech. So we end every episode with a call to action, and the call to action is that as this system continues to be built and implemented in the fall, we're going to be sharing more information. There may be a little bit of training for end users, but I think it's really more just sort of learning where things are in a new way, predominantly for most folks. So please keep an eye out for that information, and make sure that you are looking for that as we get through to the fall. Thanks again for joining this episode of Our College, Your Voices. I want to again thank today's panelists, Sarah Ferguson, Director of Academic Projects in Systems Office, Drew Lurker, Director of Student Records in Systems Office, Vearl Turnpaugh, Assistant Vice President for Curriculum and Systems Office, and Dr. Russ Baker, Vice President for Academic Affairs and Systems Office. I'm your host, Kara Monroe. You can connect with me on Twitter at KNM Tweets. Our producers for this episode were Sarah Ferguson and Russ Baker. You can reach us by email at ourcollegeofvoices@ivytech.edu. Don't forget, if you're an Ivy Tech faculty or staff member, you can join our Microsoft Teams listener community. I send out instructions on that every Thursday. Our website, where you'll find links to our show notes, is ivytech.edu/podcast. Production assistance for this and every episode provided by Becky Campbell and the Ivy Tech Community College Creative Services team, and our podcast concept is by Matthew Pittman. Theme music and post-production services provided by Jen Eads at the Brassy Broadcasting Company. We will talk to you next time on Our College, Your Voices.